Hello and welcome to another episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. Today I woke up and had a cup of coffee outside and I listened to the dawn chorus of the Australian bush and I thought, what a beautiful day for a makeover. So I went back inside and I decided that I would do a makeover today on this number 73A, and it is a 10-ton pressure refueller which first came out in 1959, and it's actually a Royal Air Force or an RAF vehicle, so it's a tanker that would have refueled aircraft on the ground. Here's a picture of a real one parked out on an aircraft apron, and it's the only picture that I could find on the internet, so I guess these weren't very numerous, I don't know. Or certainly there weren't many photos taken of them in real life. This one has not aged particularly well. As you can see, the paint has come off. It's got rusty axles, faded wheels, no decal on the roof. It's supposed to have an RF roundel on the roof. So I thought this would make for a nice makeover. Remember a long time ago I decided I wanted one of every 1 to 75 series model that Matchbox brought out, and never realizing quite how many there were. Some of them are more interesting than others. This one is a little bit boring, I must admit. However, I had to give it a makeover because that's what I do. Now the colour of this model is a interesting sort of unique grey blue colour, and I said to my wife, I don't have any grey paint. I want to make a grey blue. Can you buy me some grey paint from the hobby shop when you go out? And she said, have you got black and white? And I said, yes. And she said, why don't you make your own grey? And I thought to myself, why didn't I think of that? Of course I can, of course. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm making up some grey from black and white, and I'm adding a splash of blue. And the idea is that before I strip this model today of its original paint, I shall make up a blend of Tamiya paints and try to get it as close as possible to the original colour. And it was rather time consuming. I must admit it took a lot longer than I thought. Eventually I got to a point where I thought that's as good as it's going to get. So I'm going to run with that colour, and I think it will probably look like a brand new model when I've finished. So I'm going to be working on this model obviously for a little while before I paint it. So I'm going to store this paint mix to one side, set it aside, and I thought I'd just add a few drops of thinner there. So it sort of slows down the drying out process, and hopefully it will make it retain its fluid state for when I come to use it. So I just snap a little lid on these pots that I've bought from the $2 shop. They're quite good for keeping little pots of paint fresh, only for short times though, maybe an hour or two. So I've now got to rush if I'm going to use that paint before it dries out. I've got to get these wheels off, so I'm just using a tried and tested method there. Small Dremel with a grindstone on the end. And I'm taking off the end of the axle so that the wheels can come off. These did come out with grey plastic wheels, but also some black plastic wheels. If you've got one in pretty good condition, it's got black plastic wheels on it. One sold a few years ago for $1,500 US. So look out for the black tyres. You could be sitting on a gold mine there. This was rather fiddly. It's quite an art. It may look simple, but my left finger is holding the axle through the model as far as it can go, so it's protruding. My left thumb is holding the tyre or the wheel out of the way of the grindstone. Can be very risky, have ruined some wheels in the past, but today I think I got away with it, and all wheels came off in good condition. The axles will obviously need a clean up. As for the wheels, I'm just going to give them a bit of a wash and a shot of varnish probably. Now, most models have a different colour base, and ordinarily I would be separating this model by now removing the base, but because the base is the same colour as the body, there's no need to, so that saved me a little bit of work, and it will make this makeover a little bit more simpler than some of the more awkward ones. So I store the axles and tyres in those little disposable jelly cups, and today for something different, I've done it before, but I thought I'd like to mix it up a little bit. I thought I'd use some caustic soda to remove the paint. So first up I need some hot water, so I'm going to boil up a kettle. You can see I'm using bottled water there. That's because we live on tank water here, and we basically use the tank water to bathe, the dishwasher, etc, etc. But if we're cooking or drinking it, we use bottled water, so it's a habit of mine to fill the kettle with bottled water. So this is quite warm water, not boiling, obviously it's not bubbling, but it's quite hot. And I'm just shaking in a small amount of granulated caustic soda crystals that I bought from a hardware store. And it fascinates me how it transforms the water into this bubbling cauldron of steaming hot water, and obviously it's caustic. I don't know what that means actually, but it's caustic, and as a result it removes the paint from the model. It also sort of creates these strange eddies in the water there, and you notice all the paint migrates to the outside edges of the bowl, which is quite cool, quite mesmerizing to watch it. Anyway, when I remove it from the caustic soda, the normal colour of the base metal has changed into a darker grey. So I'm going to scuff that up with some emery paper and some wire wool and make it look better. Now here's a word of caution: do not use too much water or too much caustic soda, because it can explode in your face if you're not careful. And I'm sure you wouldn't want to get this in your eyes, etc. So a word of caution there, please treat it with the respect it deserves. Here are the rusty axles, and I put them in the drill, clean them up with some wire wool, bit of emery paper, and they turn out pretty good. The wheels are a bit grubby, got some grime on them. So I just use some hot soapy water and a toothbrush and clean out all that gunk from that rim between the hub and the tyre. It sounds a bit discoloured. Anyway, I give them a good clean, and I then give them a quick coat of this Tamiya clear coat just to make them look, I mean they are grey plastic anyway, so after this they look like they've just come out of the factory, just out of the injection moulding machine or whatever they used in the day, and they look new, which is great. As usual, I am giving this model a quick coat of the fine primer to blend any discoloration of the metal, etc., and make it all one uniform colour. That way when the top coat goes on, that will be one uniform colour also. So whilst that undercoat is drying, I thought I would show you a modern Matchbox car that I bought from a local supermarket the other day. And I thought it would be interesting to do a little unboxing for you today now with this model Tesla. It's made by license from Tesla. It's recommended for people over the age of 3, so I'm pretty good to go. It's made in Thailand, and somewhat surprisingly it's imported by Mattel in Canada, Ontario. So I don't know if that means it's made in Thailand, goes to Canada, and is then exported around the world. So I thought I'd open it up, and somewhat disappointingly the box is glued closed. Now, you know the old style Matchbox boxes, you could like put the model back in them and seal it up because it was just like a locking tongue that went into the flaps. Be careful what you're thinking there. And I've noticed that this model, the modern model, is wrapped in some wax paper inside the box, which took me by surprise because ordinarily you'd think it would just be the model come out. Unwrapping the model, I'm somewhat underwhelmed straight off the bat there. The base is plastic and flat and featureless. Now that may be what the real car looks like, I don't know, but the tyres and rims are just plain black plastic with no coloured, no chrome or anything on them, so that again looks pretty ordinary. At first I thought that the car was made of metal because it's got metallic chip paint on it. It's got some decals of the Tesla logo there and zero emission sticker on the back. I'm not too sure about that. I mean, how much emissions are produced when they produce the batteries or after they wear out, when they dispose of them? So I'm not too sure there is actually zero emissions, but there you go. That's their marketing campaign. It's not actually a metal body, it is all plastic. And on the front there it's got some more decals, and they make out that the paints have been painted or highlighted, but they haven't. It's like tiny little decals that are on there, and it's quite odd. It doesn't look particularly good if you ask me. My opinion only, of course. The tyres are hollow, and it says that there's metal pieces. I thought maybe it had suspension, but it doesn't. It doesn't even have suspension. It rolls pretty freely, but the only metal parts are the rivets holding the base on, the plastic base of the plastic model, and the axles. So all in all, a little bit underwhelming. Not like your original Matchbox cars, like this one here that is heavy duty. You can feel it as you're handling it, the quality of the build. See that gap between the tanker and the square bit behind the cabin there? There's a little tubular brace to prevent that from folding up if somebody stands on it in the morning when they get up in their slippers on Christmas morning. They come out also in two different types of brace there. One was a thin flat piece instead of the round tubular piece, and the third one was a solid vertical band. So if you've got one of these, have a look, see which one yours is. It's just interesting to see the subtle differences between similar models. Don't know what that is behind the cabin with the two holes in it. There's some interesting details on this though, the ladder on the back running up and the ladder on the top, so that the person operating the vehicle can access the hatches to dip the tanks and see how much is on board. It looks like there's a jerry can at the back there too. Don't know why a big tanker truck full of petrol would need a jerry can. You think the driver could just siphon some out if he runs out. Maybe that's not allowed, I'm not sure. Now there was a little crack I noticed in the left hand of the front bumper bar, and I didn't want to paint it with that crack there because it would be noticeable. So instead I just thought I'd put a little tiny drop of Starbond instant glue on that tiny crack on the front there. Have a look. I'm using this extraordinarily thin nozzle to try and dispense one droplet of super glue, so it will suck itself into there and hopefully cure, and when I paint it you won't see it. There, I gave it a quick dust over with the undercoat and it kind of looks invisible to the naked eye. Obviously the camera doesn't lie, but I think once it's got another coat of the paint it will be totally invisible. So I give this 2 coats of my home blended paint one quick coverage and then a slightly thicker, shinier coat, where a wet coat if you like. It's always touch and go, very thin line between too much and too little. I think I'm happy with that, so I shall stand it up on those magnetic clamps in a horizontal orientation to dry. And I always try to make it horizontal because in the past, if they've been on 45 degrees, sometimes you might get a thick side to the paint. Now that the paint's dry, I'm out to my garage where I've got my little drill press set up with two nail punches. So they have concave tips on these little like pencils there that look like pens, pen tips maybe. You know what I'm talking about, those things there hanging out of the drill. So what I do is the end that I wore off with the Dremel and the abrasive disc, or the abrasive stone, that's the end that I am now reforming into a little flattened end to stop those wheels coming back off now that they're painted. So this model can now be played with again without the wheels coming off. If the wheels come off, wouldn't be much fun, would it, for the kid? So I just gently press down and hold it, not too long, because if the axle heats up, these grey plastic wheels can actually melt, which is catastrophic. So don't let that happen if you're going to try that out. Now I did order some time ago these RAF roundel decals, and I'm going to put this on now. It goes on to the top of the box section behind the cabin. So first up, I've got to get all the gear that I use. So I need one of those, a toothpick, so I can move the decal around before it sets. Some people use paintbrushes. I've tried a paintbrush before now. I do like the toothpick though. It doesn't damage the decal. A piece of sponge, which I'm going to immerse in water so that the decal separates from the backing sheet. Some tweezers. Pink one's brand new, by the way. I was using Julie's tweezers and she got a bit miffed, and she bought me a brand new set for myself, so that's good. I'll have those now forever and won't have to borrow hers. Also a little Q-tip there, cotton bud, to squeegee out the excess moisture from underneath the decal when it's applied to the model. Now this was a surprise because I've had this model for quite a while, and these decals too, I'm guessing, because I actually forgot. I must have ordered two of them in case I messed up the first one, which is not a bad idea. If there's only one decal and you do mess it up, then it sets you back another week if you have to order another decal. I have tried to make my own decals before now, but circles are extremely difficult to cut out. We did have a little machine called a Silhouette that could cut out circles, but it was never highly accurate and always left a tiny white border on a circular thing. So I thought I'd get the experts to do it. Now I'm wetting the top of the truck there where it's going to go to give me extra time to maneuver it, the decal, if I put it in the wrong spot. It's only now that I realise that the experts that have manufactured this decal actually didn't cut it out in a circle, and it's coming off as a big square because I cut the decal into a square thinking the circle was going to separate, but it's not just a circle, it's also a big square of backing transparency as well, which I'm not too happy about. Suppose it's one of those things. I did get it dead central though, so that made me pleased. And I'm just hoping now that if I squeegee out all of the excess moisture and push down on the edges of that square, that you won't see it. So time will tell. I'm already looking at it and thinking, well, a lot of people have said use the decal softening solution, And I've had this for a while. I've never really noticed any difference, to tell you the truth, when I'm putting on decals. And I can't recommend this because I don't know if it works or not. But they say, you know, brush it on liberally and allow it to set, and don't disturb the decal for, 24 hours or something. So that's what I'm doing today. See if it makes a difference. If it doesn't, who knows? If it does, who knows? Because you don't have anything to compare it with. Whilst that's setting, I'm having a go at, again, because I've done it before, making my own little box just to mix things up a little bit. Now today I'm not too pleased again because my printer left a sort of a inconsistent band of grey on the striker side of the Matchbox box there. And although I'm showing you me making this box now, to tell you the truth, at the end you'll see a different box because I printed it a second time with some different settings and the print quality was a lot better. But it shows you how to do it. If you've got a printer, get some. This is 300 card. It's 300 grams or 300 something or other. I forget now. It's been a while since I played around with different weights of paper and cardboard. But it's a 300 semi-card thick paper stock. If you're interested in having to go at making your own. And I'm using this spring-loaded blunt-ended center punch to scribe some lines to make it easy for me to fold the edges accurately. And again, this is my first attempt. The second one that I made, I scored it on the other side, so that side, the plain white side. And that way, any roughness or tearing of the surface of the card is concealed on the inside of the box. So there's a bit to this. Use some of this Yoo-hoo glue, which is great. It dries within seconds once you press it together. And that's not bad for the first attempt, but like I said, it's also a little bit bigger. I printed this next one at 93% rather than 100%, and it was a much better size. So here's a reminder of what we started with this morning, with all those birds chirping in my garden. I was looking at this and feeling a little bit sad, but now I'm feeling very, very happy again. Some of these models came out from the manufacturer without a silver bumper, and some came out with it. So I thought this is rather a plain model, in all honesty. So I thought I would give this one a silver bumper bar to just trick it up a little bit. And the decal on the roof is adequate and looks quite good. So I thought I'd display it today with my model Matchbox Spitfire. And if you haven't seen that video, I encourage you to have a look at it because it was quite good fun. I did a few different Spitfires and gave them away to people that entered a YouTube random competition. It was good fun. Anyway, I do like the truck. I like the tanker. I like them all, actually. I'm a big kid at heart, and this one will go into my collection along with the box as a display piece. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like, share and subscribe and recommend to your friends. And until next time, this is Marty from Marty's Matchbox Makeovers saying goodbye and thanks for watching.